Hi, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody able to see my screen. This is Yakub Reddy. I'm working as a senior technology architect in Infosys, and today we are going to discuss about how we can able to validate the resiliency of the systems using the QoS engineering. There is a topic for discussion today, and uh, if hope everybody able to see my screen and everything is fine, then I can able to start actually. So in today's world, what is happening is so applications are developing at a rapid pace, and complexities of the applications has been increasing multifold, and the most of the applications are moving away from the old design techniques of monolithics to the distributed and decentralized things, which are giving a lot of issues to the existing resiliency practices. What are the existing resiliency practices? There is nothing but you have a failovers or DRs, disaster recovery mechanisms, and you have a failovers, and you have a hardware is redundant hardware is set up, and redundant software and everything application is set up. But what is happening because of uh, these distributed systems, your point of failure may not be a single point of failure, and it can be happened at any level. It can be at a component level, it can be at a particular service level. So for all those things, you can't bring up the failover and a failover every time. So, but how do you mitigate this risk because of these new architectures and new things? So we are going to discuss about those things as part of today's uh, paper, and I'll give you brief insights about how we can able to validate this kind of issues and how we can able to mitigate these risks, if not everything, but at least the whatever the things which can we know kind of a thing. So what is the resilience? So to define a resilience, how you are able to recover the application from a known or unknown issues. It may not be a known issue, it may be an unknown issue as well, but how you are able to handle that particular fault or disruption smoothly with a minimal impact on the customer. So sometimes you will be restore the services without knowing to the customer, but if in eventuality you might know the impact will happen on the customer side, but how soon or how fast you are able to come back to the normal state, that is called as a resilience. So if you are a very good resilient system or very good resilience business, you can come back to the normal state quickly compared to the others. So if you take off a classic example of this COVID thing, which is happened currently, pandemic. So if you take off a retail store with online availability, will come back to a normality very quickly. Whereas the stores which doesn't have very good online present have a very taken a very hard hit, and it is very difficult for them to recover to the normal state because they don't have a very good online presence. So that's one of the classic example. If you're talking about a high level of resilience and resilience related to the business level kind of a thing. But if it is if you put the same thing to the application thing, yes, how resilient you are when you are moved pushed to a corner or some kind of a disruptions happen. So if you take off in our own our own enterprise itself. So because of the pandemic, all the people started working from the from the inside the offices to the work from home. That will create a lot of issues and lot of pressure on the access points, VPNs, and so on and so forth. So you have to scale up the things very quickly so that you are able to come back to normal state. So I think most of the companies has been maybe a 1 month to maybe a quarter to take come back to the normal things based on their own resiliency things and their own backups and other mechanisms. So that is nothing but uh, your resilient how good you are building a resilient systems within the organization. So your for that one, your infra should be resilient, your security system should be resilient, your application should be resilient, everything including process and data, everything should be resilient enough so that you can able to come back to the normal state. That is the overall thing of resiliency. So how soon you are able to uh, come back to the normal whenever the disruption happens or whenever the fault happens. So this but how do you build this one? So how do you know that, okay, how can you able to measure that what is the resilience of my systems? How can I able to how do I know that, okay, how can I come back to the normal state whenever the disruption happens? Because we don't know, we never test those things. So in our case, we are going to test we are going to rely on the chaos engineering principles to make sure that our systems, our infrastructure, or our application has been resilient. Maybe I'm not going to touch on the security aspect of it and data side of it, but I'm going to infra side of it and application side of it. It will be goes as, and how we can able to test those things as part of the actual application resiliency. So this is like a depicting of what is happening in currently, and if you don't have a resilient system, so this is the real thing, and which is collected from the Gartner. So this it affects the half of the world population, and you have a 1.7 trillion financial losses and around 268 years of cumulative downtimes of all applications put together. And there are so many examples for that one. There is a British Airways which has happened in outage happened for 3 days, and the the very good case for the Microsoft Team outage, which not sorry, Microsoft Office 65 outage happened in last month, when the login servers are been down and your validation servers are still up. So what is happened is, so people who already have logged into the systems and they can able to access all the Office 365 applications, and people who are trying to log in, they are not able to log in because it's not a complete system is not down. So it's a part of the system has been down and part of the services has been down. So your failover never kicks in, and it happened multiple times in the for the Microsoft, which within the last month. So this is one of the classic case everybody knows, and this resiliency will cover the other things as well, like a natural disasters, or it may be a non-compliance issues which is related to process, or it may be security like a ransomware attacks. But overall thing should be, so how we can able to come back to the normal state, and how we can able to test these things whenever whenever the real thing which is happened in production, how you come back to the normal state. So those things we can be discussing in next slides actually. So I'll start with the existing, the old way of architectures and new things, how it is coming up. So you have it in a olden days, you have the monolithic architectures, and in some of the applications still written in the monolithic things. So you have a tightly integrated the things, and you have you'll everything goes in a one after the other, and it will reaches the end goal. And it's most of the times you have a single point of failures, and it can be easily developed and better performance because it's tightly coupled. But the thing will be, the scaling factor will be very hard to achieve, because you have to scale up everything. Even though you have a load on a particular component, but you require to scale up everything, there is a scaling issues and other things will be there. And the modern things which are loosely coupled and everything has been like a services kind of a thing, service oriented or microservice architectures, and uh, they are built to failure. If you fail something also, still the application still up and still available. May not be that particular service, and that is only the impacting area will be impacted on, but other things will be still active and working. And there will be a hit on the performance side of it if you go for a distributed system when compared to monolithic. But new age frameworks is coming up, that's where the performance also taken care of, and these can be easily scalable, but very high maintenance cost will come into picture, because you need to maintain the multiple different components of the application separately, and you have a multiple points of failure. Because of these architectures, this will pose a lot of challenges related to the related to the failures kind of a thing. It may be a service level, component level, or part of the application. It may be different kind of issues will come into picture as part of a distributed systems are concerned. So how you can able to handle this new age distributed system architectures, how you can able to test these things for the different kind of failures, and make sure that your application is resilient enough and you're able to serve the customers without any issues. And if at all any false happens also, you can able to recover much faster pace compared to the normal. So now it comes to the what is chaos engineering. So chaos engineering is the way of conducting a, so I think everybody understands the performance testing, I believe. So maybe I start with the performance testing. So that's where we are going to get the requirements from the different stakeholders, and we'll also get the SLAs. We'll also get the load information, and based on those things, we'll create the scripts and we'll load the application with that particular load and get the results and compare it against the SLAs and make sure that everything works fine. Or if it is not scaling, we'll try to find the bottlenecks related to the performance. Whereas in chaos engineering principles go on a reverse way. So it doesn't, you don't have the real requirements. You'll go by experimental approach where what is this experiment? You are trying to experiment by injecting the faults, and you are trying to uh, make sure that application failure for purposefully. Make sure that you are able to test that particular thing and how your system is able to cope up with that particular fault, and how it can able to come back to the normal. And this way you can able to increase your resilience of the system, and you can able to increase the confidence on the system. So there are multiple experiments. In the subsequent slides I'll going to tell you about what are the examples of different experiments, and how what is the way to conduct the things, and how we can able to conduct, and what are the tools I'm going to discuss on the subsequent slides actually. So in the current thing, so why it actually chaos engineering required? So because the DR and failovers are not sufficient, because the systems are multi point of failures are there, and uh, if a part of the system has been broken, or it's like there is a dependency of the maybe external systems has been down, or it may be a resource exhaustion will happen, or it may be a network outage will happen, or else network latency increase. So I'm just giving you different kind of examples. Or if there is a infra failure for a particular node or particular part of the application or entire application. So and there may be functional issues related to the boundary conditions. So for all those things, your DR will not come into picture until unless your entire system is down. The DR will not come into picture, because you can't put the DR system for each and every small part of the issue, and it will be very difficult to detect all these things. So if you think that okay, this is very easy to detect, no, this a part of the system or part of the service has been down, it will be very difficult to detect the things. And as part of the chaos engineering, you are going to the other benefit you are going to get it is you are going to test those monitoring systems as well. So this is why we require all the modern or new age applications which are in a distributed nature. It requires a chaos engineering. And the next obvious question, so we are saying that okay, this is an experimental approach and we have to do the experiments, and what kind of experiments you have to do. So there is a way to find the experiment for any application, so which is a fault mode effective analysis, which is existing in a long back. So this is nothing to do with the current thing, but that is a basis for all the different kind of a experiment you are going to conduct. And also you are going to collect the information from the existing production failures, and these two will have a basis for the creation of experiments. So what you do in a fault mode analysis, you collect the different components. For each of these component, you will collect all the possible failures and faults. So what is meant by failure? Nothing but it's a CPU exhaustion, or IO busy, or process shutdown, or system itself is down. So our latency increased, your network is down. It's like so it can be anything. So for each component or each service, you can able to create all the different kind of failures. And for each of those failures, what is the probability? You need to check it out based on the existing production logs and based on the existing things, and you can give a probability to assign to a particular fault based on this probability of occurrence and actual issue. So based on these two things, we can able to, and also the third one will be the impact. So if it is happens, what is the impact? So based on these three parameters, you are able to come up with a whether you are to select this experiment need to be tested on the application or not. You will be finalizing those things based on the probability of occurrence, based on the failure, and then based on the impact of the failure. Based on these three parameters, you are able to do the experiment. For each experiment, what we'll do is, so once you are selecting a experiment, so for that experiment, what you do is you come up with a hypothesis. What is meant by hypothesis? Just like a test case. So you need to, what should happen when this kind of issue occurs in the system or production. So that is nothing but hypothesis. Suppose if I have a 10 app servers and one of the app servers is taking a high CPU, what should happen? All the traffic will be need to be routed to the all the healthy app servers, and there will not be any impact to the any impact to the response times. There will not be any impact to the TPS or transactions per second, and there will be alerts need to be generated. This is my hypothesis. And for each of these experiments, I'll create a blast radius. What is meant by blast radius? Blast radius is nothing but how much, what is the area of impact for that application. So if that particular component or what a particular fault happens in the system, so what are the different areas of the system it can be impacts. So that is nothing but a blast radius. The more the blast radius, so there is a bigger impact. So all our what we're going to do it, we are going to test these things. We're trying to minimize this blast radius, and so that the impact will be minimal as part of the actual chaos engineering experiments. So once we collected all the different kind of experiments, how to start it? So we have to start based on the, so we have to segregate the all the experiments based on the blast radius. Now we have experiments, and based on the blast radius we are segregated, and for each experiment we have a hypothesis. Then we'll start with the small blast radius. We'll set the experiments based on the small blast radius. Then we'll do those hypotheses for that particular thing, and what are the metrics which need to be monitored. We'll be select those things. Then we'll conduct the actual experiment by injecting the fault into the system. So there are multiple ways to inject the things, but I'll come to that one later. So how we can able to inject the things as part of the tools section. So then once you are able to conduct this all these experiments in the lower environments, then you can conduct the, so once you are able to mature enough, then you can go to the conducting the test in the actual production itself. So it requires some kind of a maturity, then only you can go to the production. If not, it will be a real chaos happening in the production, and you'll actual customers will be impacted unnecessarily. And below is the different approaches. So you pick up a experiment, then choose the scope, then inject the identify the different metrics and do the experiment. If it is a success, it's fine. Then go for the different experiment or increase the scope of the experiment. Or if it is a failure, you repeat the things and fix the issues and redo the things till you achieve the desired outcome from the particular experiment. So it should match to your hypothesis. Till that point, you repeat the things and you are able to come back to the normal state. And these are the different type of attacks which can be. This is not an exhaustive list. This is the some kind of a list. So it's a, so there will be CPU attacks, memory attacks, different disk attacks. Different means, so it may be a disk busy or it may be a disk full. Just giving a multiple examples of it. And the latency attacks, even complete network shutdown attacks, or even packet loss attacks, and even you have a packet corruption attacks also will happen. And you have you can have a killing of the process, your system shutdown, your node shutdown, cluster shutdowns, boundary value attacks. So boundary value attacks nothing but in a auto scaling environment. If you try to spike the users too fast, then how your auto scaling able to cope up with that kind of a thing? Even that's also come into picture, and you have some kind of a config changes, you can do that one. And also the boundary, there is a functional issues related to the maximum value. So if you put you in most of in the DBs, you will given assign a primary keys and other things, and you given a maximum number out to that one. So if it is goes to that number, what will happen? Even those kind of things also tested as part of the chaos engineering. Yes. So you are so we are so all these things first we need to do it in a lower environment, then we can come back to the production, right? So whenever we conduct the test in production, that is called as a game day. Generally, people who are mature enough and they are doing these things in a production, those people will call these things as a game day. So game day is nothing but everybody into a same room and they'll discuss the things. So they'll block the war room. All the stakeholders will come into the one place, and they discuss about what they are going to test it on that particular day, and they select that hypothesis, that select the blast radius. Then they define the metrics, then do the experiment, then they collect the results and they repeat the things until that blast radius come to a minimal, or that will meet the hypothesis. They'll redo the things and record everything and publish the results. So this is will happen in the same day, maybe a 3 to 4 hours time frame, and this will happen in the production. And this every stakeholder need to be presented, and if somebody is not there, then this will be postponed to whenever they're based on the availability. So every stakeholder need to be available whenever you're doing this game day. And this game day is one of the concepts how to do the chaos engineering, and it's just like a fire drill of whatever we are going to see in our enterprises. So what are the benefits we are going to get it if you conduct a chaos engineering? You are able to increase the availability of application, and we are increase the nines kind of a thing. What is meant by nines? About 90.99%, 99.99%, 99.999% kind of a thing. So we're able to increase the availability of the applications, and we are able to decrease the mean time to detect uh, from a hours to the minutes actually. So we have seen for a multiple clients the uh, mean time to detect from a 4 hours time frame to the 15 minutes, because we are injecting these faults and make sure that we are able to identify those things. So there is nothing but we are able to test those alerts, whatever the alert mechanism is there, and make sure that that is working fine kind of a thing. Then we can able to test the auto healing capabilities of the application. So whenever that fault occurs, if some auto healing is required, then it automatically need to be kicks off. If it is not happening, then we can able to fix that one. We can able to do those things. And even the mean time to recovery also, we have to bring down from the multiple hours to the sub hours, because because you are able to detection is the most important thing. If you are able to detect the things fast, then you can able to recover fast, because you know that okay, what is the exact issue, and you can able to recover the fast. Then your fault tolerance of your system will increase, and thereby you are able to increase your system reliability and resilience. So this entire thing nothing but you are able to detect the things which are faster pace, we are able to recover into very fast pace. And if any monitoring side of it, alert kind of a mechanism, will be going to test it as part of this one. And uh, your availability will be increased, your overall reliability and resilience of the system has been increased because of a chaos. If you do the chaos engineering, and you are going to get all these benefits. And what are the tools you are going to use? So there are so many open. So see, if you want to conduct this falls into the system, so you need to know how to do it. So if you want to inject the CPU attack, so on a particular system or particular uh, what is this node or container, the CPUs need to be high. So how do you introduce that one? So you have a tools, open source tools is available, or you have licensed tools available, or you can able to write your own custom scripts as well. So you can write a small snippet of code to create that particular attack. So you can write a while one block kind of a thing, and you can put it into that particular system. So that will eat up all the CPU. Or else you can create a similar way. You start writing something into the disk continuously, it will create a disk attack kind of a thing. And same, so we have an open source like a Chaos Monkey and Chaos Panda, X-Ray, Litmus, and Chaos Blade. So this Chaos Monkey is the primary tool, because the chaos engineering itself is mastered by the Netflix team. So that's where the microservices architecture and everything come into picture. So the Chaos Monkey is the first tool which is into the chaos engineering space, that is developed by Netflix. And they themselves started this chaos engineering as a big way, because they have a very big presence in the they have all of their Netflix applications has been developed in microservices framework, and they deploy into AWS. And they are facing the a lot of issues related to the whenever there is a new content been added to the new release been added to the Netflix, that's where they are facing a challenge. So that's where they come up with its Chaos Monkey, which is tightly integrated with the code kind of a thing, and it's randomly it shut down the instances and make sure that application is withstand with that kind of issues. So that's about a Chaos Monkey, but you have other things. Even Army also related to the Netflix itself, and Panda and X-Ray, Litmus, Chaos Blade are the different types of a open source tools, and they are for a particular purpose. So for a particular cloud kind of a thing, they are able to work, and everything has its own limitations and its own advantages as well. And you have a licensed tools like a Gremlin and Cavis and iNet Havik. So these are the tools which are commercial in nature, and they provide their support as well. So open source tools, you don't have any support. It's up to us to do any modifications or any changes. Whereas these licensed tools have a support for them, and we can able to inject the different kind of a thing. So you have around 11 for the Gremlin. Gremlin we have around 11 to 12 attacks, and Cavison we have 13 attacks, different types of attacks. So that attacks includes all the CPU, memory shutdown, and there is a time travel attack which is available on both of these things. That is nothing but you can change the timing of host, then what is the impact. And the last one will be we have custom scripts. So we can write your own custom scripts, and we can able to inject those things manually. So if nothing is available and we have to do a quick kind of a thing, we can able to create a small things. So if you want to write for the script for everything, it will take a time. But like a CPU disk kind of a thing for a smaller scale, if you want to start it, so which is very easy to create the scripts, in like a while one loop or simple writing into a file that will create a disk and CPU attacks. But you can able to write your own scripts to do the injection based on the availability of the tools and kind of a whatever the availability of tools as well as your enterprise security levels is concerned. So that's it from my end. So this is like a conclusion. So chaos engineering is like a new approach when compared to the other existing performance or existing things actually. So in existing resilience testing, so which is still evolving process. So which is basically to validate the complex distributed things. So even it's still evolving, and maybe last couple of years which are taking a center stage. So people are started adopting more and more chaos engineering into their projects, and they're able to do a different kind of experiments and make sure that their application or their SaaS services has been always available to the customers, and there will be less impact to the customers. So that is the high level conclusion from my end. So if you have any questions, anything, let me know. Hello, any questions? Please feel free to ask any question related to the chaos engineering, and I'm happy to help you. Okay, I hope that everybody understand the chaos engineering principles, and uh, so whenever you get a chance to your thing, you can go ahead and do the experiments using the chaos engineering principles and able to increase the resilience of your systems actually. So thank you for giving this opportunity and present to everybody. Thank you.